Hello and welcome to Odds Serie A, Matchday 35. We have a champion, we have a team in Serie B, but still a lot to be decided. Daniele Fisichella, hello.
Ciao, Edu. And this comes after the Champions League semi-final, the derby of Milan, the semi-final of the Conference League of the Europa League. Okay, let's say it before everyone start putting comments. We are recording this on a Tuesday morning, so we don't know what's happened in those important games. But obviously, we are looking at Serie A, and as you mentioned, there is a lot at stake at the top and at the bottom of the classification.
We are fully focused on the Serie A, so guys, remember, as always, leave your comments, press the like, and subscribe. And now, let's go on with the show. And the first game is on Friday. We have Lazio Lecce in this match day. There are some games with nothing to play for, but this one is an important one because we have Lazio third, 64, so 3 points more than Milan, still fighting to get into the Champions League next season, and we have Lecce still involved in the relegation battle, Danny. 4 points away from Spezia. Next game is Lecce Spezia, and they lost to Verona. That's why they are still in trouble.
Of course, and both are in desperate needs for points. Lazio because they lost 3 out of the last 4, and against Milan they were particularly disappointing because they didn't have any shots on target. Magnan was basically a spectator, and despite Milan losing Rafael Leao very early in the game, Lazio couldn't master any chance or take control of the game. They were really swamped in midfield. Milan suffocated with the press. They almost did the job that Lazio did on Napoli, the very high press and shutting down the middle corridor. So Lazio really disappointing. 2 defeats at San Siro. It seems almost like the physical condition has deserted them a little bit, and that's strange because they don't play in the European competition. And now, to go to the next Champions League, which will be an amazing achievement, they need at least 9 points for the next 4 games. They go Lecce, then they go Udinese away, Cremonese at home, and Empoli away. So it's an easy calendar, really, for Lazio. They should be able to do it. And at home, despite they lost the last one against Torino, in unlucky circumstances, they have been very strong. They haven't lost at home since October, since the defeat against Salernitana. Lecce, only 1 win in the last 11 and only 3 goals scored. Against Verona, disappointing as well because they beat Udinese before and then they got undone with a goal from distance by Ngonge. They're gonna go and play against Lazio, who's still the second best defense of Serie A. Now, if Lecce remains 4 more points on Spezia and win against Spezia in the next game, they will be saved, having done a very bad girone di ritorno, so after the World Cup, really, but they still will be saved. So, well, they're going to save energy for this one. Are they going to just think about only the Spezia game and try to win? I don't know, but I think Lazio are in desperate need for 3 points. And as I said, considering how difficult it is for Lecce to score goals at the time, I can't see anything but a Lazio win, but perhaps not a large one because some of his star players are suffering a little bit of a dip in form. Lazio win and under 3.5 goals here for me, 202.
Lazio to win pays well, in my opinion. 1.76 is not a bad price, considering that we are talking about a team in the top 4. And on Saturday, we start at 3 p.m. Local time with Salernitana Atalanta. Salernitana absolutely safe. Atalanta still fighting for European spots. A step back against Juve. They had chances to get at least that draw, but now, Danny, they are 5 points away from the Champions League spots. It's going to be difficult, I guess, for Gasperini's men to arrive to the top 4.
That defeat against Juventus really was a spanner in their wheels because after 3 consecutive wins, then they lost the home game. They were a little bit unlucky, okay? Also because during the warm-up, Højlund suffered an injury, so now they are without Lukman, without Højlund, without Boga. And yes, the partnership Muriel and Zapata this time didn't quite work, but they hit the woodwork twice against Juventus. So maybe a point could have been more fair. They are -5 from Inter, as you said. Now, this is a crucial week for them because they don't play in the cup competition, them and Lazio. They can rack up 6 points and really close the gap on Milan, Inter, and also Lazio itself, perhaps, or Juventus. It's not impossible. The next game at home for Atalanta is against Verona. Atalanta are unbeaten in 3 away games. Salernitana first defeat, by the way, at Empoli after 10 games. They could have drawn the game. In the end, they had a great opportunity with Mazzocchi. They finished defeated 2-1, so Empoli saved. Salernitana only needs 1 point. They're +8 on Spezia. Careful with Salernitana. I know the reverse fixture finished 8-2 for Atalanta. That was basically the beginning of the end for Nicola, but Salernitana at home and away have already taken points against Inter, Fiorentina, Napoli, Milan. They are the kings of draws, 14 draws. Unlikely this game is going to finish at 0-0 or 1-0 for either of the side. I can see goals in here. If anything, Salernitana will go for it. Atalanta is always going for it, but still leaves some gaps at the back. Over 2.5 goals, 182.
No defeats in the last 5 home games, usually with a lot of draws, as you mentioned. And then we have Spezia, Milan. Of course, this is an uncomfortable game for Milan in between the Champions League tie with Inter, but still they have to keep an eye on the Serie A because they are right now out of the Champions League spots and they are traveling to Spezia, Danny, looking more and more a Serie B team, only 1 point in the last 5 games, now in relegation spots. Next game, as we mentioned before, is Lecce.
They lost 4 of the last 5, Spezia. They've been unlucky because in the crucial moment of the season, they missed their top scorer, Zola, who was back in Cremona against Cremonese, but they found a super keeper on their way, Carne Secchi, super goalkeeper. This is a guy that is going to play for a top team next season or maybe the season after. Deny them a couple of goals. Spezia is worrying because they do look like a team. They do look like a team that is creating chances. They are suffering a little bad luck. And now against top sides, now this game against Milan, they always have bad result apart from the win against Inter. They need at least a point here, really, to try and close the gap against Verona. They are also not favored by the fact that they play before Verona. Verona plays Torino, so that's not really good for them, considering also next week they also go to Lecce, so they might be again playing to Lecce 5 or 6 points away from salvation, which will look desperate. Now, Milan, I'm really curious to see how Pioli tackles this one. Obviously, we are recording this video on Tuesday, so we haven't watched the derby, Milan-Inter. There is a full video with me, Alvaro and Edu, for the Champions League prediction and analysis. Go and watch it. But I'm wondering if here Pioli won't make 10 changes like he did in Bologna when he played in between the Napoli games, because this is so important for Milan that they cannot drop points here. So perhaps the turnover is going to be slightly less. Still the question mark whether Leao is going to play in the derby or in this game. All their last 8 games for Milan have been under 2.5 goals, and actually 10 out of the last 12 Milan games have been under 2.5 goals. So solid, resilient. They are able to control games. They're not scoring many goals. Giroud hasn't scored in the league since February, but they are getting goals from midfielders. And obviously the defense, it is good. It is becoming... is going back to the solidity that we saw last season, especially in Italy domestically. Unbeaten in 7, Milan, by the way, which is currently the longest unbeaten streak in Serie A. And since the restart, so since after the World Cup, the international break in March, Inter and Milan are top of the league in the last 7 games. So these are the 2 most informed teams. Will Milan continue here? I think they would. I don't think they're going to drop points. I think they might win it. And by saying might win it, I would expect a low-scoring game, a 1-0 or 2-0 for Milan. And I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals here again, 195, just to follow the trend of the last few games they played.
It pays exactly the same. Milan to win, actually, 1.95. So it could be an option. It's good odds going for Milan to win away against Spezia in really bad form. Spezia, I'm talking about the Champions League. Inter also playing on Saturday, of course, against Sassuolo. Inter in great form in Serie A, beating Roma and Verona away without conceding, so 4 consecutive victories with them. Problem for Inter, Danny, they have a tough calendar. They have Napoli, they have Atalanta, and this Sassuolo is a dangerous team as well.
It is, especially if you play them in between European fixtures. Roma knows something about it. They play them in between Real Sociedad fixture and conceded 4 at home. Sassuolo also a few months ago went to San Siro and scored 5 against Milan, because Sassuolo is a young team, is pacey, they're gonna go for it, they're gonna hit you with vertical passes. They are not the most defensively sound team in Italy, but as a team, when they play with nothing to play for, they are really, really dangerous. Their recent form has been really patchy. You got 2 wins, 3 defeats, one couple of draws as well. So they've not been in great form, but they are the sort of team that can make it uncomfortable, especially if you are tired after a midweek game, which of course we haven't yet seen. But Inter, on the other hand, are physically well. I said in a few weeks ago that I was wondering whether they repicked physically and they're having almost a second, almost, like when teams start the season really well and now they are back in that form. But you can say because many of these players are running more simply, Brozovic against Roma ran 13 kilometers. He was the players who ran the most, recover so many balls, and that's so important for Inter as well. Lukaku physically is much better, is much sharper, even linear, I will say. They scored 14 goals in the last 4 Serie A games. The problem with Inter has never been creating the chances in Serie A. It has been converting them, and that's why they lost so many points against stragglers or teams that are on the right-hand side of the standing. As I mentioned before, in the last 7 games, they are top of the league alongside Milan. It could be a high-scoring game, I think. It could be an over 2.5 goals. I'm going to go for a both to score, 182. Inter will gonna make changes as well, because the derby is only 6 days away. But they've been informed, they've been taking the chances. I think it could be a both scoring game. 182.
All right, let's jump into the games we have on Sunday. And the first one is an important one for the relegation. Verona-Torino, with Verona now out of the relegation spots thanks to the victory against Lecce. It was the first away victory of the season, Danny, and at home, apart from that defeat against Inter. Usually they are strong. If they win both home games against Torino and Empoli, in my opinion, they will be safe. But this Torino is also really informed playing away.
It was a vital win for Verona after the 6-0 defeat against Inter at home. Good news, another the third goal of the season for Ngonge, who helped them in January, then suffered an injury. And the fact that he's back, it really is a good news. They do have goal scorers, Verona, something that perhaps a team like Lecce doesn't have, and that could compromise the season. First away win of the season, as you mentioned. They're also very strong at home at the Bentegodi. Before losing to Inter, they were unbeaten in 6 out of the last 7. So make it 6 good results out of 8 games. Obviously, playing by knowing the result of Spezia is a big advantage. The 2 away games they got in the rest of the season, Atalanta and Milan, are tricky, but Empoli at home is definitely winnable. And now Torino, nothing to play for. They deserve more against Monza. There was a penalty shout at the end for a foul on Ricci, which I think it was a blatant penalty, not given. 11 goal of the season of Sanabria, perhaps one of the unsung hero of this Serie A, the Paraguayan. Torino plays without a strong striker or a recognized number 9. He's more of a second striker, Sanabria, and he's been so good for them, so clinical. Ivan Juric, going back, of course, to his former team, Verona. Torino unbeaten in 4 away games. I don't think they're going to drop points here easily, and I'm going to go for a double chance X2, considering that the draw will suit Verona well if Spezia doesn't win, and under 3.5 goals. 2.10. Remember, Torino never scored more than 2 goals this season. I don't think they're going to start scoring plenty of goals now at the end of the season. Verona at home, very solid, very sturdy. X2 and under 3.5 goals, 210.
10 points out of the last 12 away for Torino, but of course, Verona, they are playing for their life. 2 games with nothing to play for. Next, Fiorentina, Udinese, with Fiorentina keeping their eyes on the cup and on the conference. In Serie A, Dani, bad run, only 1 victory in the last 6, and Udinese leaving a lot of emotions in their stadium lately. They put Sampdoria in Serie B and they saw Napoli winning the Scudetto.
Yes, I mean, it's been entertaining. So the Udinese season, they started so well at the beginning of the season, also with those wins against Inter, against Roma. Then the form went a little bit down. They were saved, played for nothing, missed the Lofeo because of injuries. So they, out of a sudden, they were not scoring many goals, but they do remain an entertaining and attacking side. And so are Fiorentina. These are 2 of the most entertaining and most attacking sides in Serie A. Fiorentina against Napoli missed a lot of chances. They were the better team. And I wonder, had the game counted for them, perhaps in the end they could have even equalized it. But yeah, they were the best sides. But yeah, you're right. Only 1 win in the last 5 for Fiorentina. Of course, they played a lot of games since April because they are also in the Coppa Italia final. It will be an interesting game to watch. Nothing at stake. There could be goals here. I'm sure there are going to be chances. Both teams scored the same number of goals. So Fiorentina, in this sense, are a little bit underperforming because Fiorentina are second for shots in Serie A and Udinese are 5th. So there are almost 90 shots of difference between these 2 sides and they scored the same number of goals. But they're very attacking, as I mentioned. Fiorentina are second for corners. Udinese are 4. Fiorentina, as we said, only 1 win in the last 7. Udinese 3 defeats in the last 11, but always away defeats, 4 consecutive away defeats, actually, if you include that 3-1 defeat against Inter, but they do give it a go when they play away. For me, it's difficult to predict this one. It could be an over 2.5 goals, but Fiorentina sometimes misses so many chances. Over 9.5 corners, pays 183, so you think there's going to be 10 corners or more on the game. Over 9.5 corners, 183.
And the other game with nothing to play for is Monza, Napoli, 2 of the best teams this season. Of course, Napoli champions, Monza in the middle of the table, still doing great. Perhaps it's a good idea, Dani, going for a surprise here for Monza, no? Why not? They drew the last 2, they are unbeaten in the last 6, and Napoli, they are just partying as they deserve.
As they deserve, but it's true that, I mean, Napoli have been fantastic this season. It is true that in the last month and a half, they slowed down a lot. In the last 7 games, they only scored 1 goal or less. Against Fiorentina, as I mentioned, they didn't have the better chances. But it's understandable. Spalletti hasn't done much turnover during the season, and now he's giving space to players who played less minutes, the likes of Demme, the likes of Juan Jesus, Gollini, the goalkeeper. So it is obvious that I think they're going to make a lot of rotation during these games. But let's not forget that Napoli still got the top goal scorer, Osimhen, 23 goals, and he will want to finish top goal scorer. In fact, he missed a penalty against Napoli, and then he took the second penalty because he really wants to finish as a top goal scorer, and Lautaro Martinez is 4 goals away, and Kvaratskhelia is top assistman, 10 assists. So I think they will want to add to their tally. So never underestimate the individual motivation of these players, just to add a little bit more. Monza, on the other hand, unbeaten in 6, scoring 9 of the last 10, is a very technical side, a very good midfield, and I think if they stick with Palladino's done such a good job, next season they might even push for a top 7, top 8 finish, considering, how can they strengthen the squad. I mean, it's the squad of Berlusconi and Galliani. Oh, of course, and the Cateler. They also think about the Cateler. So, they get some former Milan players there. Their reverse fixtures finished 4-0. We were in the middle of August. I remember watching this in Italy with under 40 degrees, and Monza still had Stroppa on the bench, and I thought they are hopeless. They're going to go down. It changed everything. At home, they only lost 2 games in 2023, and in the last 7 games, they got the same points as Napoli, score 2 more goals. I don't think it's unthinkable to predict Monza to give Napoli a very good game and not suffer defeat, at least initially. I'm going to go Asian handicap plus 0.25 in the first half for Monza, which pays 207. So if Monza wins the first half, you win. If they draw the first half, you win half your stake.
And next, we have Bologna-Roma. Difficult game, this one. For Roma right now, out of the European spots, 4 winless games. Their focus is in the Europa League. After this game, at least, they have an easy schedule to win the remaining games, but it's difficult to beat them, Danny, in the Dallara, Bologna.
Totally. They are very difficult to beat at home. They drew against Lazio, Milan, Juventus, won against Inter. It's a side that has completely changed, rejuvenated since Thiago Motta took over. There are rumors in Italy that link Thiago Motta to Inter. We'll see, but definitely they've done a very good season, considering that they play most of the season without Arnautovic, which we saw again playing 20 minutes at Sassuolo. They are winless in 6 games, Bologna, okay? So let's not talk them like they are world beaters. And they scored 2 goals less than Roma, who scored 45. And by the way, this is for Roma is the worst tally since 93-94. Now, Bologna tend to start home games strongly, take the lead, and sometimes retract, and sometimes go and play too deep. If that's the case, probably a draw is in the card. For Roma, I don't think they could have done more than what they did against Monza and Inter, considering the loads of injuries that they have. They should get back Dybala, Wijnaldum, Belotti, Selic, of course, come from suspension, at least for the Europa League game. There is the return game against Bayer Leverkusen. For me, at the moment, it's very difficult for Roma to finish in the top 4. Okay, they got an easy calendar. Maybe winning the Europa League is a way to finish in the Champions League. Lot of rumors and noise around Mourinho, whether he's going to stay, whether he's going to leave. He seems more and more nervous with everything surrounding, from referees to the club not defending him, etc. Roma, I had a look at the numbers. In between European games, their form have been a little bit patchy. For example, they lost against Sassuolo, recently beat Udinese at home. Then in the earlier stage of the season, they won away at Lecce, won twice against Verona, and beat again Lecce as well. So when they play against struggling teams after or in between European games, they normally win. But when they play against teams that are a little bit, they got more technical abilities, like for example the Lecce Sassuolo, they did struggle. I wonder whether Roma will be able to keep a clean sheet here as well. I'm not sure. It could be a both to score, it could be a draw. This is a difficult to tackle, really. I'm gonna go for Bologna as an handicap 0 in the first half, because they do start games early and strongly at home. Maybe they can nick the first goal and finish and win the game. So if they win the game in the first half, 2.23, that's your win. If they draw in the first half, you just get your money back.
All right, Bologna, Asian handicap 0 in the first half. Perhaps Mourinho goes to PSG. There are rumors linking him to PSG. Who knows? With PSG, everything is possible.
Yes.
On Sunday, we also have the other Europa League team in Italy, Juve Cremonese. Juve 5 points away from Milan. So we still don't know if these 15 points are going to stay or not, but they are in the good way to finish in the top 4 in Serie A, and at least, Danny, Cremonese, they are still fighting for salvation. They are not down. It's almost impossible or very unlikely, but 6 points away from Verona.
But if they're going down, and I think they are going down, they're going down with a lot of dignity, really. They are going down fighting. And look at the way, I mean, this is a newly promoted side who changed half and more of their teams year on year. Then they changed the manager as well. And they did really well. You know, they almost won the game at Milan a couple of weeks ago. Had they won the game and had Verona not beaten Lecce, they would be in touching distance, really, from Verona and Spezia. So a little bit of misfortunes. They've been good at home, recently helped, as I mentioned, by a very good goalkeeper, Carnesecchi, but they do have goal scorers, Okereke, Ciofani, the same Dessers. These are players that can maybe not go in double figures in Serie A, but they can rack up 7-8 goals. And at the end of the season, this could be really important. In the last 7 games, by the way, so after the international break, Cremonese has 1 more point than Juventus and score 2 goals more. So they come as the most informed side. Juventus, on the other side, did what Juventus have done for the last 2 years with Allegri. Went to Bergamo, they were extremely clinical, physical, hit Atalanta on the break, then defended with 9 men behind the ball and hit them again. So they are at the moment second, 1 point behind Lazio. The latest rumors and latest news in Italy is they're going to be deducted 9 points instead of 15 points for the artificial gains. But there are other lines of inquiries and other trials that can start. So again, I think the deduction of points for Juventus could be more, and UEFA probably is preparing a sanction for them not to play in Champions League or in Europe at all next season. We'll see. But we know that from a symbolical point of view, for Allegri finishing second, it's so important. He can say, well, at least, finish second, I've done better than Inter, Milan, Roma, etc., etc. They've been really clinical against struggling team this season. They only dropped 4 points at the beginning of the season against teams from the 14th place down. There were 2 draws against Sampdoria and Salernitana. Other than that, not spectacular, but always clinical. They win it 1-0, 2-0. They dispatch them, without too many fuss about it. I think Cremonese, I got a feeling Cremonese can nick a goal here. Juventus, of course, playing Sevilla home and away in the space of 7 days. Over 2.25 goals, 189.
Is Allegri going to stay, Danny?
Definitely. Allegri is going to stay. He's got other 2 years contract. It doesn't look like they're looking for a substitute. They're looking for a new sporting director, but it looks like Allegri. He's going to stay. He's in a very well-paid contract. Yes, Juventus cannot afford really to change the 4th manager in 5 years after Sarri, Pirlo, and Allegri back. They need a little bit of continuity. And I think for all the pitfalls of Allegri, for as much how poor they've been, they will start to play, I think they just need continuity really at this time. So yeah, they'll stick with it.
Lucky Max, well paid. And the saddest game of all, Danny, on Monday, Sampdoria Empoli. Sampdoria already in Serie B. The same week, Genoa were promoted. Sampdoria got relegated. Empoli, on the other hand, they will stay 1 season more in Serie A.
Situation with Sampdoria has been absurd since day one of this season. A team that was on sale, couldn't find a buyer, financial issues outside of the pitch, of course, sacked the manager, brought in Stankovic, is a team that has not been strengthened much in the summer, and then was a little bit of panic buying in January. Their home form has been horrendous, and the last few games really very, very sad to see. I think the problem with Sampdoria is a lot of players that joined the club never thinking they were going to be in a relegation battle. They found themselves there and couldn't react. Look, Sampdoria relegated after 12 years, and this is an historical club in Serie A. Of course, it's a club that has won European titles, has played a final of the European Cup. They will play in Serie B for the 3rd time since 1981. So in the last more than 40 years, only 3 times they played in Serie B. That tells you how big the club is. Good luck to them. Hopefully something like with Genoa will happen, a new ownership. Genoa was taken over by an American group, and they delivered first year back in Serie A with Gilardino at the helm. Empoli saved, by the way, with merit, won against Salernitana, 2-0 up, then they conceded a goal. As always, the last few minutes with Empoli are a little bit shaky. It's a young team. They didn't really know how to defend the box. When there is a bit of a siege, they always concede chances. Look, anything could happen. Even Sampdoria might win this one because it's useless, and they might go out with a bang. I think it's going to be above to score 182. Okay, probably a high-scoring game, but yeah, we'll stay away from a bet on this one. It's very difficult to predict. And sadly, he's the latest game of the match days on a Monday night, and basically they play for nothing. Both to score 182.
I'm sure there won't be a great atmosphere in the stadium. Danny, tell me your best bet.
You mentioned it at the beginning of the show. Lazio to win against Lecce, 176.
Because it was a good one. And your account?
Salernitana Atalanta over 1.5 goals. Verona Torino double chance x2. Fiorentina Udinese over 1.5 goals, and a double chance between Bologna and Roma, this time 1x. Total odds 4.24.
Okay, Danny, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for watching the video. Just remember, of course, to comment and press the like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.